CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. Welcome back to CMMS Radio. If you're not watching, the guy that you see on screen, normally he's got a halo above his head. That is George Williams of ReliabilityX. You've seen him on CMMS Radio countless times. I don't even know the number anymore, and there's a reason for that. Real deal. No bullshit, high integrity, and I'm not even playing around with that. George Williams, welcome back to CMMS Radio, brother.
Greg, it's always a pleasure to be here with you, my friend. We're always excited to talk and all things reliability, especially CMMS, near and dear to my heart. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing I want to dive in on right away is we've got SMRP coming up. That's in October. For everybody out there that doesn't know about SMRP, first of all, that's a head scratcher, but it's going to be Fort Worth, Texas, October 6th through 9th, 2025. By the way, if you go to register and you want to get the hookup with a discount, use the code CMMS10 and you'll save 10%. So go and do that. But George, what are you going to be doing at SMRP? And I also want to follow up with, why is that such an important conference to you? Because you're also a sponsor of the event.
Yeah, so SMRP is an organization we've been involved with, and I personally have been involved with for a really long time. I got my CMRP in 2003. Oh man, that's dating myself. I've been going to those events since a really long time ago. I think Virginia was the first one I went to. And it's a special event for a lot of reasons. One, it has remained a conference that's dedicated to its community. So that's really important, and not necessarily productized itself. Second, we've got a couple of CMRP of the years. I mean, we're the only consultancy with 2 CMRP of the Year award winners. So myself and Ramesh are both CMRP of the Year recipients. And so that's pretty astounding for us. It's an event where I get to network and see people I don't get to see on a regular basis while we're doing our day jobs, but it's like family, right? You're returning back to family. So that's an important, critical piece. And for us as an organization, and just me personally, giving back to that community has always been incredibly important. And so we do workshops, we give presentations as an organization. Ramesh and myself will be doing a full day workshop where we walk people through how to assess their current maintenance and reliability practices, and then develop a strategy. So they'll be able to do that in a single 8-hour session. They'll be able to assess their own plant and get results that they'll have access to, and be able to develop a strategy right in a single 8-hour window. So it's going to be really, really high paced. Paul's giving a presentation. Ramesh has other presentations that he's giving. Dan Anderson, who's our director of business development, he is co-chair of SMRP at the moment, and likely to be promoted to chair during this event. So that's really exciting for us. It's just a great time to engage people that you've known a long time, to meet new people, to collaborate and understand where people are today, because that's also really important for us to provide the best service possible. We want to understand the challenges that folks are facing, and there's great opportunities to do that and network during the event, which is probably my favorite part.
Yeah. Well, and shout out to Bob Latino. There's going to be lots of HLMs. It's going to be with clients, potential clients, people throughout the network where, maybe we call it the brethren of the industry. For everyone, I'm not a certified maintenance and reliability professional. That's my fault yet. And, but what's awesome about these conferences, and I've never been to SMRP, so this is really exciting for me to finally be there. Brian Bieski, a dear friend of ours, has always said, Greg, what are you doing? You got to get to this conference. So it's finally going to happen. That's very cool. One thing, I've got some stuff going on, and I want to thank you in advance, because we're going to bring the rig, and I'm doing something really special. I'm not going to make a full-blown announcement right here, right now, but it will be coming soon. I'm going to be doing a full-blown production. So
Love it.
that's going to be exciting. You're going to be a part of that. We're going to see if we can get Ramesh to hang out where I'm doing the recording and all that, but more on that later. Let's get into a little bit more about when it comes to, and there's going to be a lot of CMMS companies there. So for me, that's always exciting because I can kind of pick their brain and talk to them about what they're doing, what's new, what they're seeing in the industry. But I want to know, for you heading into conference, we're a couple of months out. What are the things that are happening now, and not just the workshops or any of the speaking sessions, but that you expect are going to be really hot topics for SMRP 2025? And this is also for everyone just a really important conference because last year they had to cancel the conference due to some unfortunate and serious weather with the hurricane. So this one's really going to be like that conference plus. But what's going on in industry now? And what do you think is going to be a really hot topic or several hot topics at SMRP 2025?
Well, I hope the hottest topic is go swing by the ReliabilityX booth, but outside of that, there's a significant trend towards AI and everything shiny, just like there always is every year, right? And so I think that'll be a significant part. I think when folks boil down their organizations and they show up to a conference like SMRP, they're not only looking for, what's new and innovative, but many of those organizations are looking at, we're having trouble getting the basics back. Interestingly enough, I think between the skills trade gap that exists, that's going to continue for probably a decade, and the advent of AI and the ability to make the line or machines smarter, those things have to culminate together. And we've got to either increase the skills trades knowledge, or we have to make the machines smart enough where we don't need folks with that skill set. Unfortunately, you're not going to make them smart enough to fix themselves yet. So, there has to be this balance between the two. So it not only will folks be looking towards what technology and how can AI and machine learning help me temporarily while that gap exists, but also how do I get learning and how do I improve the skill set of my people so that the delta between the two of those things doesn't grow, right? We want to shrink that delta.
Yeah. I was just reminded of something when it comes to things like workshops, or I think back to the times where when you onboard, let's say you're at a plant or some place that makes something, they're doing some form of manufacturing. Maybe it's a big one, maybe it's a small one. We used to go through these things like orientations that were supposed to be kind of like a miniature indoctrination into some safety protocols. There might be something about maintenance, I'm sure. And I remember that it seemed like the video they might show you is kind of dated, but this is the idea I'm moving towards here. With the messaging doesn't really change. All the flashy, shiny stuff, and I know we like to poke fun at it, and we also both would probably agree there's really good stuff about that. But if you leverage those things and you ignore the messages of old that can inform us about the future and how we should be moving through this process of maintenance management, having a reliable plant, if you have such a plant that can benefit from reliability, that's not always for everyone. Some just wouldn't get there. I wonder where we're losing some of those basics, because you kind of alluded to it, that we're getting further and further away from it, and more people are talking about it. Why isn't it sticking? What do you think is the biggest challenge? Is it the generational change, or is it something else?
It's just a fundamental lack of understanding on how to become reliable. So there's a balance. Let's walk through this process really quickly. Organizations and companies do research and development on products they think can sell. And when they decide on a product and a design, they then have to buy a bunch of assets, whether they build a new plant, install a line in an existing plant, whatever it is, they install an engineered set of machinery to manufacture that product. From that point forward, the only thing we can do is mess up the reliability. The machine was already designed, it's already in place, it has an inherent reliability. What we can do as humans surrounding the asset is mess it up. We mess it up by not operating it right, by not putting the settings to optimal set points, by not executing the PM right, by not having a good lubrication program, and all the technology that comes out is simply letting us know what we're already not doing right. None of it is ensuring that the line is precise. That it's giving you a warning that you didn't do it precisely, or you've created a scenario where a component's going to fail. It's giving you an early warning of degradation and failure that you still have to remedy. You can avoid all that if you just put it together right the first time. If you have a good strategy and you do the basics really well, then all the technology and AI is doing is supporting that you did it right and you're getting the longevity as expected. And then eventually, of course, components will fail. It's giving you an early enough signal so that you can properly plan, schedule, and execute that repair with having a minimal impact to the operation. So it's not so much, I mean, seriously, in about three sentences, you can knock out what our goal really is. And it's to keep the machines at optimal performance via good operations and good maintenance. And then the technology is there to support, did you do those things right? And even if you did, when we see degradation, we're going to let you know early enough so that you can remedy it and get back to operational performance. So it's really a matter of, are we doing all those things that are necessary to keep an optimal level of performance? And it doesn't matter if it's manufacturing or non-manufacturing. The asset was purchased with a specific design intent and delivery of value. And our goal is to keep it delivering the maximum value possible.
Yes, yes. And I'm reminded of something you've taught me, and that is that maintenance, as an organization within your organization, their responsibility is to convey risk of exactly what you just described not happening. And then there's this other thing that I think I've learned it from you, from Brian Bieschke, Howard Penrose. I mean, all the heavy hitters that I like to have on CMMS radio, because we're trying to collect and gather the right kind of knowledge and guidance for people. Maintenance should be boring. And what that really means is, whether you've got tech or you've got your people moving in the right way, you're doing those basic fundamentals properly, consistently, right? There's going to be some variability. It happens, right? Somebody called in sick that day and they really were sick. But the whole point of maintenance being boring, that means maintenance is doing its job and minimizing that risk of less availability, because this is all about, reliability, and maintenance creates reliability. Maintenance and reliability are two different things, but that's what it's really all about. And I think my next question would be, when it comes to the CMMS, because we always want to mix that in, it's not an easy button, it's a tool. But why is the CMMS so important to someone, say, for example, like you, when you come in to do facility assessment? You do that. You do extensive facility assessments that are typically 2+ weeks of constant work to assess and look for these opportunities to improve an operation. Where does the CMMS play a role in that?
A significant opportunity to do two things. One, streamline the work management process. So that's an efficiency exercise. So the ability to gather work that needs to be done, prioritize it appropriately, assign it to the right individuals, have it all planned and scheduled ahead of time so that it can be executed. That's one piece, right? So the whole work management piece of the CMMS is significant. And that includes the storeroom and inventory management side. The second piece is that the data that is entered in the CMMS should be of enough quality to analyze that information and go get better. Oftentimes, that's the hiccup. What tends to happen is there's a misunderstanding of the value of taking the time to document your work properly. And that's because either A, no one has communicated that value, or B, they haven't done anything with the data. So if you ask people to enter a bunch of data and take their time and do it right, but do nothing with it, all you did was waste their time. So the CMMS plays two pieces, one the efficiency side, the other the effectiveness side. I'll just give you an example of some of the effectiveness pieces, things not to do in your CMMS. One, have blanket work orders where you put all your time against it. I have no clarity into what you did or what we spent money on down to the asset level, and it makes it really difficult to see where the problems are in order to solve them for you. Two, being extremely vague in the details associated with the work order, like a work order that says, I don't know, machine.
Inspect pump.
Problem with the machine, or insert the machine name here. We've got a current client, and I'll just use basic examples. It'll say peeler issues. That didn't help, right? And then when you couple that with, organizations typically see about 50% accountability in the system, and the most important metric is accountability, because then I can quasi rely on the data. At least I know if something's being documented. They misunderstand that, and they put in blanket work orders to cover the time. And so you miss all the clarity. The reason that's so critical is because the data that you're missing is actually the stuff you need. The PMs, the system generates the PMs. So it's easy to put time on those. What the system doesn't generate automatically are the emergencies and the breakdowns. And so if you're missing labor accountability, it's because you're missing the data you actually want, what's breaking down. And so if you, put in blanket work orders to cover that time, now they're still not required to put in the breakdowns. It makes it very cumbersome. And then eventually, hopefully you get to a point where you are putting in the breakdowns. In that case, you need better information in the description and cause of the issue, so that you can actually analyze the data and make a difference and go make something better, and get rid of reoccurring issues that are eating your lunch every day. But oftentimes that's the struggle, right? How do you balance not wasting their time and getting the right level of clarity that you can go solve problems? But in order to do that, you just got to gain their confidence, and you do that by solving some problems. The very first time I went through this improvement process and getting people to start utilizing a CMMS, the first thing we did was sit the entire maintenance team in a room with two whiteboards. They were flip charts at the time, and just said, tell me all the issues that are out there that are a headache for you. Because we didn't have data in the CMMS yet. And we said, look, we're going to start solving these, but I need you in exchange of that to start putting everything in the system so I don't have to keep putting you in a room. And we went and solved some issues, and guess what they started doing? Putting data in the CMMS.
Yeah.
They knew we were going to go solve issues. So, it's a give and take. There's got to be something in it for them, right? The CMMS can't be just a filing cabinet where you're asking everybody to write massive amounts of information, but no one ever looks at it.
That reminds me of something I've also learned from you amongst a lot of our other industry colleagues and friends, and that is leveraging failure modes or failure codes, because that holds value when it comes to reporting, looking at past, present, or even future things that you want to have an awareness of, and that helps. But everything you're talking about seems to come down to the front line, and then that CMMS being the historian, giving us visibility into what's really happening if we're getting the right details, also really does connect this whole process and maintenance and reliability to the organization as a whole, because other KPIs will be generated that have more value because they're contextual. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. It starts with the basics, document everything that you're doing. And you grow in maturity. You begin to use failure codes or damage codes if you're in SAP or whatever the system may call those things. Close out codes, closing codes, I think is in Hexagon, right? So everybody may have different terminology for those things, but the premise is the same. I want to know what the problem was, and I want to know what you did to fix it. And the advantage of using that coding system is that it's a selection process and not a typing process. So you're not relying on somebody using the same terms and spelling them correctly. you're,
Yeah, yeah.
you're relying on a drop-down menu, which is your best friend in a CMMS system, right?
Yeah, that's also part of at least for me in facilities operations, of course in manufacturing as well, but in a lot of facilities operations that I had the pleasure and honor or whatever you want to call it of working with over all these years, where consistency starts to develop amongst the team and they're paying such close attention to the CMMS platform that they start to leverage those closeouts that are highly accurate rather than, we've got three choices on how we could do a closeout that lack clarity or information. If there's enough happening in the system, somebody can say, all right, these three are really, really, really common, very, very useful on our closeouts. They don't overgeneralize and they don't send us off the path of what this data and these indicators actually are trying to tell us. Another question I have is about the idea, or who owns the CMMS in your view. Now I know it's general, it's not always going to be the same person, but I've
Yeah.
always wondered who should really own the CMMS. Is it the maintenance manager? Is it someone in the C-suite? Is it someone that's more participatory, on the plant floor, that's part of that operation? What's your view on that? Or how do people figure out who in my organization should own the CMMS ultimately as administrator?
So it's an economy of scale with respect to who in the organization at what level. If you're an organization that has multiple plants, it can't be an individual plant manager. But it must be the business. It cannot be owned by IT. It is a business solution designed for business processes. And therefore, someone in the business needs to be the owner of the system. IT is a support function that ensures that that system is adequately managing the embedded processes, not the other way around. Where I see it fail often is when it becomes an IT solution that is handed to the business to then fit around. That is not what that is designed for. It is a business process solution that has to be first and foremost owned by the business, where IT is a service to ensure that system is adequately managing the process.
There's a lot to that, and I think in fairness, over the years where I was, providing and selling CMMS platforms or a specific platform more so than any, where we wanted IT to be an alliance for us so that it didn't get in the way of us helping to solve a problem on a plant floor, in a facility, for a property manager, for a hospital, school system, or anything like that. And there are times when IT has the best of intentions, but they still may have a blind spot as to what this really is. They don't typically, and this is not a dig on them, but they don't typically know what maintenance is and what it's all about until you talk about system maintenance, server maintenance, network maintenance, and they're really focused on that. So their intentions are good. And then when it comes to security, they want to have a lot of say there as to the security of a system, if it's cloud-based or anything like that. But you make a good point that they're there to serve the process. So we're not trying to crush IT. We're trying to say, hey,
they're an important piece of this. They have to
absolutely.
be.
Absolutely.
I think the struggle is this, Greg, that like IT owns the Microsoft platform that everybody's going to use. IT owns issuing out the laptops and putting images on them. IT owns so much of the various solutions, including in many cases the ERP, because it's such a big, giant solution. But in the case of the CMMS system, what tends to happen is because IT is owning all those other pieces, the funding for implementing the CMMS tends to go through the IT department, in which case they by de facto become the owner. That should not be the case. Maintenance should be paying for the implementation of a CMMS system. IT owns the ongoing licensing that happens throughout its life cycle. So the initial budget and implementation should be coming out of maintenance or operations, and the ongoing cost becomes part of the IT budget. Folks tend to get that wrong, and it just based on structure because the funding is coming from IT. It's an IT project.
So I want to switch all this back to SMRP coming up. There's a few other things that you've got on deck as an organization, places where you'll be, but there's something important I want people to know. Not just George, but his entire team at ReliabilityX, they are CMMS agnostic. What we mean by that is they're not playing favorites. They want something that works, something that's well supported, but they want you using something that meets your business processes that have already been successful for you so that you can amplify it. They can help you no matter what system you have. You've heard him mention a couple of systems like Hexagon. He happens to be an upkeep ambassador like me. There are all kinds of other systems out there. It's not always about the system itself, although we want providers that will back your play. ReliabilityX is there to help you figure out if what you have is working well. If it's not, they can help you fix that. They wouldn't tell you to start over. They would first want to do a comprehensive assessment and say, what are you missing? What wasn't set up quite right? Because usually that can get you back on track, even if you got old software. We've seen that countless times. And the reason we don't want to play favorites in that situation is because that can get in the way of the outcomes. This is all about the outcomes. And early on, hope you don't mind me kind of talking about this, George, but we're talking about integrity, intent. And what we're really trying to do is leverage technology that actually benefits you, your team, and ultimately your organization. It's not just a spend. It's not just a clunky, junky thing that your team hates and doesn't use. So talk to them. And if you're at SMRP, you can go talk to them no matter what system you have. Even though I mentioned he's an ambassador, it's more about what are you doing, what's working. Is there any last takeaway you'd want to give us, George, about SMRP that's coming up or anything else that you've got going for the rest of this year?
Yeah, we've got a couple of things going on. So I'll also be keynote speaker for the HECO's RPM conference in Detroit in September. So if anybody's going to be attending that, that's a fantastic event. They can, get a link. We'll put something in your social media post to make sure they get a link to register for that. That's the 23rd and 24th, I want to say, of September. That's going to be a fun, exciting event. Lots of networking opportunity there as well. There's usually a few hundred people. We'll certainly be at SMRP. We've got a couple other things coming up throughout the year. We're hoping to announce soon some public training course offerings that'll be happening in the fall. We're finalizing some logistics there. So until that's final, I can't really announce that, but that'll be coming relatively soon. And when it does, we'll make sure that you're aware of that and we can promote those things. So come on down to SMRP. It's going to be a great event as always. And I'm excited for the stuff that you're going to be doing there, Greg, as well. We're going to be hauling not the entire rig, but
the rig we used at the Streamline Conferences event this year. Yeah. So we'll be hauling some stuff down so that we can collaborate with you and continue to provide a great service to your audience. Well, and I really thank you for that. It's always exciting when we do that. I love the way we did it at Streamline Conferences, and this is really, it's going to be fun. We'll be able to get some updates from you. We're going to talk to a lot of our friends. We're going to put together a lot of relationships, and that's what this is all about. So George Williams, ReliabilityX, thank you for being here with me on CMMS Radio. I will see you at SMRP in October. And again, everyone, if you want to go register for SMRP, hit the website, use the code at checkout, CMMS10, and you'll save 10%. And we want to get that going for you so you don't miss out. We don't want you to miss out on this awesome event. Thank you, George Williams.
All right. Cheers, Greg. Thanks.
Join thousands of maintenance and reliability professionals at the SMRP Annual Conference this October in Fort Worth, Texas. Register now and use code CMMS10 to save 10%. The SMRP Annual Conference is the premier event for professionals in maintenance, reliability, and physical asset management. Here's why you don't want to miss it. Over 100 sessions led by industry experts, hands-on workshops, and real-world case studies. Unmatched networking with peers and thought leaders. Largest expo hall dedicated to tools, technologies, and services. Earn professional development hours, PDHs, for continuing education credit. Register at SMRP 2025 Annual Conference Attendee Registration. Choose registration and use code CMMS10 to save 10%. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.